Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you for joining us again this week for part 2 of our conversation with Michael Johnathon. Wow, you've got a lot of stories in your stories. And so then you have a play.
Walden, yeah. Henry David Thoreau is my big literary hero. Mm-hmm. And I thought I got invited to perform a couple songs at a play that was struggling, that didn't have an audience. So I brought my little son, who was 8 years old at the time, and I said, well, come with Daddy. I'll sing a couple songs. We'll sit down. When the lights turn off, we'll kind of leave and get you a hamburger or something for coming with me. And so I went, did my songs. It helped put people into the theater a little bit. And the lights went down and the play started. And I noticed my son lean forward and put his elbows on the seat in front of him and was mesmerized, because it occurred to me, we're living in the first generation in human history that gets its art and music on a cell phone. And this was new to him, actual 3-dimensional art and acting. I was watching his reaction. He stayed for the whole thing. He didn't want to leave. And I thought, well, gosh, if that's as powerful an art form as that, I want to write a play. How hard can it be to write a play? Well, it's pretty hard. and I thought, well, my big hero is Henry David Thoreau. And the most dramatic thing about him was the fact that nobody knew who he was. Nobody liked him when he was writing. He was the Vincent van Gogh of America's literature. And he had a lot of trouble in his life. He adored his brother John. His brother John passed away, and he thought, I would love to be close to my brother even though he's gone. So he decided to propose to his dead brother's fiance, Ellen Sewell. And she thought that was the most ickiest thing that could have ever happened. So she rejected Thoreau, and he ran off depressed into the woods. And very few people know this, but he started a forest fire that burned down 150 acres of Walden Woods.
Well, that one I hadn't heard. And I've been to Walden. I've been to the park, and I used to actually have the blueprints for his little house that he had there. Well,
yeah. Well, he was very depressed and struggling as a writer, and nobody was reading him, and nobody understood what he was about. And Ralph Waldo Emerson was his mentor, for lack of a better word. And it was Emerson that was buying up the property around Walden Woods to, in his words, to save them from the axemen. It was Emerson that was trying to save Walden Pond from being destroyed by the new culture, the new commercial culture coming in. And he looked at his little friend, still in his 20s, just an emotional wreck. And he said, look, you need to get away from everybody. Why don't you go out into Walden Woods and just stay there for a little while? And so Henry David Thoreau built himself a little cabin, cost him all of $28. And he was there for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. He went there to write a book in honor of his dead brother, John. But he had writer's block. He didn't know how to write that book. And after 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, all he had were 7 journals about dirt and birds and bees and tree rings and the pond and rain and grass and leaves, and just this stream of conscious thought about how he felt about nature. It wasn't a story. It wasn't a poem. It wasn't had no structure to it. It was nothing. It was just 7 journals. And I thought the most amazing time in America's environmental and literature history would be those final 2 days. He was there 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. The last 2 days he was there, convinced he had nothing, convinced that he failed, convinced that he wasn't any good, as he's packing up, getting ready to leave his little cabin that he built at Walden Pond. What must it have been like? And so I wrote the Walden play based on the final 2 days he was in his cabin before leaving Walden Pond. And we put it up on a website. And I was like, if 3 or 4 theaters perform this play for a first-time playwright, that would be a huge success. And so far, about 9,600 plus colleges, schools, and community theaters in 42 countries have performed the Walden play.
Oh my goodness.
It's been filmed, and on Earth Day around the country, it airs on PBS stations around the country. We've got a wonderful, wonderful production. And if your fans go to waldenplay.com, they can watch the PBS production of the Walden play.
Oh, that would be amazing. Because like I said, I've been there. I lived in Massachusetts for over 20 years. And
yeah.
I remember going
to, you go there and you hear the highway and the trains and the jets flying over top of you.
Yeah, it's very near. He would talk about walking into Concord Center and how they thought he was crazy. Well, he'd have to go somewhere to get some supplies, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And he was the crazy man in the woods and that sort of thing. But so it was always a place I liked to go. And one time I went there and there was, I just expected to go in and see the usual, few things that are there, a desk and a pile of wood. And that was about it, in a straw bed. And as I opened the door, someone said, and he was in costume, he was in character, the old English sort of accent scared me to death. He did that periodically. He went in there in his wool suit, and he was the person in flesh. So anyway, so then I have got to watch that. That sounds so exciting because that's very personal to me. So
to see to write a play and then see the reaction. I mean, the attraction of the play had nothing to do with Michael Johnathon wrote it. It had to do with, this is a way to introduce Henry David Thoreau to hundreds of thousands of kids, because Thoreau's work, it's a hard read. He'll spend 3 pages describing his stack of firewood. People think in 140 character tweets now. Henry David Thoreau's writing is not the way people think anymore. So the Walden play is a way, it uses a lot of Thoreau's natural humor. It's a funny play. But it genuinely introduces, and the argument between Thoreau and Emerson is real. I mean, the play comes from me. I selected all my favorite Thoreau quotes and all the most powerful Emerson quotes, and I weaved them together into a conversation. So what you're hearing, they actually either wrote it or said it. I didn't make up what they said. This is what they said. I just weaved it together into a conversation.
And that's waldenplay.com?
Waldenplay.com, yep. And if you're a school or homeschool parent or a theater, you can download the script, and it's all for free. Costs nothing to play it, to perform it.
That's another plus as well. So you've 6 books and a motion picture. Caney Creek?
Caney Creek is the most amazing. It's the most amazing woman's story to happen out of Appalachia. The producers of the motion picture describe it as the Dances with Wolves of Appalachia. It's a true story. It started in 1915 And the script ends in 1955 when Alice Lloyd is tricked to appear on an NBC TV show called This Is Your Life by Ralph Edwards, that saved what we know today as Alice Lloyd College.
Right.
But it started in 1915 when Alice Lloyd was about 40 years old, and she's gotten sick with spinal meningitis and has a stroke. She is a journalist at the Boston Globe. Her husband decides to leave her. Her church says, the doctors say you'll live longer in a warmer climate. We have a mission home in Kentucky. You can have it for free. And so Alice Lloyd and her little mother decide to move to Kentucky to get to a warmer climate. In February of 1916, there's this major snowstorm going on, and a mountain man named Abisha Johnson, 55 years old, humpbacked, sick, 7 children, has a dream that this foreign woman that just moved into the county would teach his children to read and make them better than the hogs in his barn lot. He viewed the mountain people as being trapped by the mountains, like hogs in a barnyard. They're born, they breed, they die. They stay in the mountains. And he wanted something better for his kids. That didn't mean he didn't love his home and love the mountains and love the traditions. It's just he could see what was happening, and it affected him. And so he gets up from his dream, crosses 2 mountains in a snowstorm, collapses through her door, begs her to come to Caney Creek to teach his children to read, and says, if you do this for me, I will give you my land as payment. Which to a mountain man, to offer his land as payment, it's everything. That's how important this was to Abisha Johnson. And today, Abisha Johnson's property is the campus property of Alice Lloyd College. So if your fans, go to caneycreekmovie.com with a C, Caney with a C, caneycreekmovie.com. On the homepage, you can actually watch Alice Lloyd on This Is Your Life telling her story.
I vaguely remember This Is Your Life. It was probably not one of the channels that my dad wanted to watch. So, and we watched what he wanted to watch. So,
well, it was on NBC. At the time, it was the most watched show on NBC in the 1950s. What's neat was they tricked Alice Lloyd. She hadn't been at a Caney Holler for 26 years. They tricked her to go to Hollywood to meet a benefactor that would save the school because they filed bankruptcy. They were getting ready to shut down. And this was like a Hail Mary pass for Alice Lloyd, who did not want to go on a 3-day train trip to the West Coast. She gets there and she's sitting in what looks like a strange living room with a huge curtain, and the curtains open and the lights turn on and there's an audience, and Ralph Edwards comes out, and she didn't know what was going on. It was a surprise. And at the end of the show, and you'll see this when you go to the Caney Creek Movie website, at the end of the show, he does something for the first time in the history of American television. He turns to the audience, looks straight in the camera, and tells America, send her $1. And as she's coming home 3 days later, the postmaster in Lexington, Kentucky, calls the sheriff in Hazard, Kentucky, who takes the call, slams the phone down, runs into Main Street Hazard in the rain, deputizes the first 14 men he found, gave them all shotguns, and they surrounded the Hazard post office, waiting for 3 fully loaded trucks coming in from Lexington of letters loaded with cash, all addressed to Alice Lloyd because of the appearance on This Is Your Life. And it saved the school.
$1 at a time.
$1 at a time.
Painting and Van Gogh.
Yes.
How did that come about? I know I keep saying that, but it's around the corner, another story about something else you've begun.
Right. Well, when the pandemic hit, I always loved art. When I was a kid in high school, I had my own cartoon strip published in 17 newspapers. So I always loved art. I always loved drawing. I always loved at anything that had to do with the arts. The pandemic hit, and I was like, well, I'm off the road with all my friends. This is not going to end anytime soon. What can I do? And I said, I'm going to start oil painting again. And I started reading up on Monet and Rembrandt and Da Vinci and Van Gogh. And Van Gogh really caught my attention because of his story, because of his style. Van Gogh was the Woody Guthrie of oil painting. What made Woody Guthrie such a famous songwriter was that anybody can play them. Anybody can play This Land Is Your Land. Anybody can understand what he's singing about. It was the accessibility of Woody Guthrie that made him so revered and famous. And, nobody sits down and says, I want to do a painting like Michelangelo. It's too damn hard. You don't sit down and go, I think I can paint like Rembrandt. No, you can't. Nobody thinks that. But Van Gogh, you look at his painting and you think, this is incredible. I think I can do this. I can paint like that. And that's what made Van Gogh so revered, was his accessibility. And so when the pandemic hit, I really did a deep dive into Van Gogh and a lot of other artists. And lo and behold, so many of my paintings sold so fast that I was able to record an album called The Painter. And when I recorded the album of the passion of art, all these songs are about the passion of art. I even include Don McLean's Vincent, Starry, Starry Night, my own rendition of it. And I said, well, maybe this should be Wood Songs 5, a book about art, an artist. And Van Gogh, out of all of the artists, I mean, there's so many. Rembrandt died a pauper and in an unmarked grave. What Michelangelo went through to do the Sistine Chapel would kill most people. Van Gogh's story is of intense failure and heartbreak. His mother hated him and hated his artwork. He was the second son born. The first son born was also named Vincent, but he died at childbirth. And so when Vincent was later born, they named him after his dead older brother. So he was living in the shadow of this death mask. And his mother kept wishing Vincent was the first child. And she even wrote to one relative and said that she wished our Vincent, would just die and get it over with. She didn't even want him around. And he eventually went crazy several times. And his most famous painting was of a prayer that he wished he could pray to a God that he wasn't sure he believed in. He was in an insane asylum. He would spend his nights staring out a window through the bars. During the day, they would let him in the garden to paint. And he created a painting that was a prayer that he wished he knew the words to speak. And he put a chapel where there was no chapel, and a hometown where there was no hometown, and a cypress tree reaching up into the heavens in the dark, because that's how he felt. He felt like he was reaching up to some kind of a prayer or a God that he didn't know where it was. It was in the dark, and he was scared, and he just felt the power of these starry nights up there, and that's what it was. It was the starry night. And he tried to give that painting away as a gift 3 times and was refused 3 times because nobody thought it was any good. They were ashamed to put it on their wall, and they turned down the Starry Night 3 times as a free gift. And today it is the most copied, duplicated, revered, it's insured for over $1 billion. This one painting is insured for $1 billion. It's the most copied and duplicated painting on planet Earth, and he couldn't give the thing away. Never sold it. Nobody would buy it. Nobody would even take it as a gift because they thought it sucked. And that's what Wood Songs 5 is about. That's what that book is about. Stories like that.
The stories as you're telling them, and the front porch. And that brings us to your current Wood Song Artist Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
It's another front porch, and I'm sure stories will be from all of this, but how did this come different than the song farmers? How is this
Well,
different?
yeah, okay. If your fans go to songfarmers.org, what I did is I created the anti-music business community. What does that mean? That means if you look truthfully at what's happening, there are no longer CD players in cars. There's no CD players in computers anymore.
Yep.
Every single music store chain in America has shut down. There's no longer any record store chains left in America. Best Buy is out of the record business. Walmart is the most disrespectful presentation of art you can imagine. These albums and CDs that people have bled and mortgaged their homes and sacrificed their families and wrote these songs and recorded them, and they're in a big round garbage bin in Walmart. They don't even give you shelf space anymore. This is the truth of the music business. And I am just very honest with people. You want to be a songwriter, you want to be a musician, you're not going to get signed because there's no longer any record labels signing artists. You're not going to get booked because a lot of venues have shut down and there's hardly any booking agents anymore. You're not going to get famous. There's no longer a golden ring for you to grab onto. The truth is, the greatest stage in the world, you're sitting on it. It's called your living room couch. The greatest stage in the world is your own spiritual front porch. I tell musicians, become mentors in your community. Music can be a very powerful part of your life. It does not have to be your livelihood. And the truth is, you're not going to make a living with it. That's the truth. So let's look at that. And what's the next best thing? Motivate thousands of people in your region by bringing them together with music. And that's what the Song Farmers community is. Little Tellico Plains, Tennessee, a tiny peanut of a town. The Song Farmers chapter up there started in Perry and Diana's living room, and it expanded to the community center. And there's like 200 people showing up every month, musicians and audience, where all you do is you sit in a big circle and everybody sings the same songs together as a group. It's fun and it's free, and players get to play, and fiddle players get to play their fiddle, and banjo players get to play their banjos, and everybody does it together. Cabot, Arkansas, another tiny little rural community, started on Jim Talbert's living room, and it got so big that the local public library began to host these events. And it got so big there that the local banks got concerned about the crowds. So they hired food trucks to come to the Song Farmers events. Florida, Skip and Linda Johns started one. And now there's 14 chapters just in Florida. So I was looking at that for musicians, and I was like, but what about the painters? What about the poets? What about the writers and the authors? What about them? That's art. They're having the same problem we have, right? So I started the Wood Songs Artist Gatherings, and all it is, it's a working picnic for artists. That's all it is. It's free. The host does it for free. The artists get invited for free. No audience. They show up at 1 o'clock. They have a little meet and greet, coffee and cake, and then they go off for the afternoon. And the songwriters write a song. The painters bring their easel and their paints, and they paint the picture. The poets go under a tree in their lawn chair, and they write their beautiful poems. The author goes and does a short story or a novella or a play or whatever. And then about 5 o'clock, everybody comes together and they have like a potluck dinner presentation concert. What was created this day? The poets read their poetry. The songwriter will sing the song that he wrote that afternoon. And the painters will show their canvases to everybody. And it's a way to celebrate the artists inside the artist community. And there's 18, I just started it this summer. There's already 18 towns across the country doing it. Next year, it'll be big.
It really appeals to me as far as the support that people give each other. And I have friends that, they're artists, or they're sort of shy about their art. So this will give them an opportunity to gather together, do their thing, and put it out there in a supportive environment before, some have actually put stuff out there, but it's sort of a struggle to feel confident. And I like the fact that you have multiple types of art forms coming together to experience each other. I'm going to put in the plug that the Portsmouth, Ohio area is going to have one. And I am very excited. We've secured a campground that it's off season. It's before they have any fall events. And they have a Bigfoot event coming the next weekend. So we're right in there before that, and lots of space, and someone that's very supportive and said, you can have the place. So
isn't that wonderful? And you need to let us know so we could put it up on the website.
I will definitely
get the date up there. But I'll tell you what, in Louisville, two of America's premier writers and poets, Lee Pennington and Ron Whitehead, immediately jumped into this. I mean, immediately, as soon as they heard about the idea, they immediately, and Louisville got big really fast, and they've already shut down the invitations out there. Milford, Ohio, same thing. I'm hosting one here at my log cabin, and there'll be about 30 artists, 30 to 40 artists at this one. I mean, it's not a free for all. It's not open to the public. Right. Whoever's hosting it invites the artists to come to wherever they're doing it.
Right.
And there's no audience, there's no tickets. These are just the artists exposing their passions and their heart and their spirit and their love for what they do to each other. And you will be surprised at how that little act can re-energize an artist, because we are in a cynical world. We are in a mercenary world. We are in a world that is full of litigation and people telling you no, or that you're not good enough, or that there's no place for you. We're surrounded by it. And in the meantime, we're in the deafening noise roar of this digital tsunami of cell phone art. Nothing is real. And what I'm saying is that the global front porch, we need a front porch around the world, and it's real art and real artists on that porch, not digital interpretations.
Amen to that. So your mission, I saw in an article about you, your mission to touch 1 million lives.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think I said I would rather touch 1 million hearts than sell 1 million records. Let me explain something, and this probably sounds very confusing to the audience. How does he pay his bills? How does he make a living? How does he feed his children? There is a reality in the world that we're living in. Follow me close here.
Okay.
Free is the new business model of the arts. Let me prove it to you. Anybody on this planet can use Facebook for free, but it's worth billions of dollars. Anybody on planet Earth can Google anything they want for free, but it's worth billions of dollars. You can YouTube anything worldwide for free, but it's worth billions of dollars. Wood Songs is put together for free. Why? Why do the artists come on Wood Songs for free? Because we have 2.5 million listeners that they can count on. And what does the audience always do with an artist that they love? They buy their stuff. You don't have to ask them to. They want to. And what I tell artists and songwriters and musicians, if you're clinging on to the old business model of the music industry, you're losing out. This is the equivalent of people hanging on to the rotary phone when the whole world is going wireless. What are you doing that for? Why? These wonderfully sincere people that run these music conferences, where artists come together at a big Marriott hotel for, it costs them more to go to the Americana Music Conference or the Folk Alliance or the IBMA. It costs them more to go to this conference than the average artist makes all year long. The business model is wrong. It's a rotary phone. It should not be that way. It shouldn't cost you more to go to a music conference about the genre you're in than that genre provides for you all year long. It's just wrong. When we have our yearly Song Farmers gathering and they come from all over the nation to come to the yearly Song Farmer gathering, it's free. It's free to the members. They don't have to pay conference fees and hundreds of dollars in memberships and hundreds of dollars more in hotel rooms and hundreds of dollars more in travel. They get to come for free. If you're a member, you come for free. What is a member? $25 a year. What do we do with that? We pay for the Wood Songs classroom program to go free into the schools. But they get to come to Renfro Valley to the yearly conference, hundreds of them, for free. Free is the new business model of the arts. You just have to know how to use it.
I know that one of your sayings was that you have to explain the free. It's, there's more context to that, but and that's for another time probably. So.
Well, when you go back to that statement, I would rather move 1 million hearts than sell 1 million records. If you're an artist, you're not a bricklayer, you're not a plumber, you're not, a carpenter. You're an artist. You're creating things that were not there before in a way that hopes other people want to be part of what you're doing. That's what an artist is. And unless you're driven by love, remember what I said in the beginning of this interview, love is the greatest transaction of the arts. It drives everything. And that's what I meant. I would rather move 1 million hearts than sell 1 million records. Who was the number 4 record on the Billboard charts 3 months ago? Do you know?
I don't.
Do you care? Did it affect your life in any way that whoever it was the number 4 album on the Billboard Hot 100? Who cares? Means nothing. They've accomplished nothing. They're vibrating air, and that's it. But you look at someone like Pete Seeger, he used vibrating air to build a boat. The boat sailed on the Hudson River. The purpose of the boat was to help clean up the dirty waters of the Hudson River. They gave concerts on the platform of the Clearwater boat, and thousands of people would come to the shores of the Hudson River to see these free concerts put on by Pete Seeger and his friends. And when they got to the shore of the Hudson River, They saw the dirt and the garbage in the river. They wanted the river cleaned up. Pete used free to do something magical with it, and it cleaned up the Hudson River. That's the power of love there. And
he created a platform.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what Song Farmers is, and that's what Wood Songs is, and that's what the Walden play is. It's you use art to inspire good things. And those are the planks that build America's front porch. Those good acts.
So many wonderful sayings that came out of this. So, well, as our time is kind of coming to a close, I want to thank you, Michael, for joining us and sharing all of your many talents. And I hope that we will talk to you again. I'm sure that you're not done creating.
Well, I would love to get an invitation to the Wood Songs Artist Gathering in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Well, you'll have that invitation. So
good.
And I will get you the details. So
okay,
complete with directions. We have the date, we have the place, and I'm starting with invites, and it's starting to fill up.
Well, so, that's very exciting.
It is. Again, I want to thank you for being with us. This is Laura Womack from the Never Too Late Cafe, Bloom Where You're Planted podcast. And I just want to say to everyone to remember to keep creating, keep supporting each other, and most of all, remember to bloom where you're planted.
Sounds like a song farmer to me.
Bye-bye now.